Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and not necessarily those of Talktainmentradio.com, 3MR Production, its ownership, management, or staff.
We got the power. The power. The power. The power.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on Talktainmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Taken from the American Constitution in these words, toward a more perfect union. Toward a more perfect union. Now when you use the word more with perfect, that which is perfect is that which has been brought to completion. So when you use more perfect, you're either saying that what you call perfect is perfect for that stage of its development but not yet complete.
All right, you're listening to Minister Louis Farrakhan, and we're going to get more from him later. But this is October the 16th. And 17 years ago, something happened on this day. 1 million, I'd say almost, I was there. I'm going to say almost 1.5, maybe 2 million. This is a large, I'd never seen a gathering like that. Gathered in Washington, D.C. under something called the Million Man March. It was all about black men. What we were going to do, where we were. How should we define ourselves? How have we been defined? And where do we go from here? 17 years later, we're still asking that pertinent question. What came out of that? Where are we now? Where do we go from here? We get different thoughts on it, different opinions on it. But I want to hear what Mr. Fuller has to say. I don't know if we've ever done a show, he and I have ever done a show, talking about the Million Man March. 17 years later, we're almost in 3 years, we'll be coming up on that vaunted 20-year recognition of it. But we're looking back now. Everybody's 17 years older. All of us that are still here. Many of us have passed on. But those of us who are here, we're certainly 17 years older. What have we seen in those 17 years? Have we redefined who we are and where we're going? I want to bring in Mr. Neely Fuller. He's the author of two, what we call the most definitive works on racism. As he's outlined and talked about it, and then to hear him articulate and talk about it is even more riveting. So let's bring on Mr. Neely Fuller. Mr. Fuller, how are you, sir? Oops. Mr. Fuller, how are you, sir? Sorry about that. How are you, sir?
I'm still learning.
All right. Mr. Fuller, this is what they would call the 17th anniversary of the Million Man March, and I'm sure you were probably there. Am I correct? Were you there 17 years ago?
Yes.
Yes, I was there. Maybe I was looking for you. Probably didn't see. But I was there, and I got there early in the morning, stayed until as long as we could. Farrakhan.
Well, I was on the outer edges of it because the crowd was so huge, and considering my condition and age, and et cetera, et cetera.
It was huge. I mean,
right.
it was enormous. But then we were talking about atonement. That was the key word in all of that, a word called atonement, which I'm still struggling with what that meant in the context of what we were doing. But let's look at it. Let's look at black men right now, Mr. Fuller. Black males, black men. Can we be called men? Are we called males? What's going on right now? If you had to, but before you do that, I want you to tell everybody. You can go to www.producejustice.com, pick up Mr. Fuller's two definitive works, and I'll give him a chance to get into what those were. But I want to hear more specifically what he has to say about the status of black men in the year 2013? Mr. Neely Fuller.
Well, you can get the books that I put out by ProduceJustice.com, and that's the textbook workbook for victims of white supremacy. And go to ProduceJustice.com, and you can get the basic book and the word guide, if you prefer to get that one too. That is an addition to the basic book. That's a counter-racist word guide. Tells you how to use words, what words not to use, what words to pay attention to when other people use them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, in speaking of the status of black males, it's the same as it was 17 years ago. We're under the system of white supremacy. You're either under the system or you're not. There's no such thing as being in between. You're either a victim and a subject of that system, or you're not. And the system either exists or it doesn't. And you can't cut slack with it like that. There's no way to chop it up and say, well, this is this, and this is this, and this is the other, and all. No. It's a zero-sum game, if you might say, to use a slang expression. Either you have it or you don't. Either you have cancer or you don't. The system of racism is a cancerous system. It's very destructive. It's constructive in the ways of handling material things, moving materials around. It can be very constructive that way. It is proven to be that. Making scientific achievements, revealing things that hadn't been revealed before. The system of white supremacy has been very efficient at doing that. The problem with it is it leaves millions of people on the factory floor. You produce a lot of excellent materials, but you just throw away people just by the shipload, just over and over again, daily. Millions of people just thrown overboard, thrown into the trash bin, ground up, dispersed, stomped on, just to sometimes produce something that's pretty and exciting and titillating and keeps people on a high, you might say, right to the extreme case of the use of cocaine. That's modern science. I mean, finding out how to use it, how to distribute it and whatnot. And that's basically what the system of white supremacy is. And it's designed to dominate and mistreat people of color. That's what it was inaugurated for. And has been very efficient at that. And the result of that is, as far as black males are concerned, they are in the same shape that they were 17 years ago. There's been no improvement. And a lot of it has to do with the standard way that we have of reacting to white culture, the system of white supremacy. And that is, the standard way we have of reacting to it is tacky, trashy, and terroristic. And that's basically among ourselves. And we still react to it the same way. Tacky in every area of activity. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. The way we go about doing everything is at very best tacky. And we try to improve on that tackiness. It goes to the second T, trashy. Black males are trashy. We're trashy people. I mean, we even look like trash sometimes, just walking down the street. We try to act like trash. We talk like trash. We even invented a term saying talking trash. We love it. As loud as we can, 3 o'clock in the morning, waking people up. If we happen to be up at that time, walking through the streets. Trash talk. And then we go from there. If we just try to improve on the trashiness, then it goes to the third register, which is terroristic. The pop, 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 pop of the 9mm pistol in the middle of the night. And you roll over in the bed and you say, oh, there it goes again. Then you hear the sirens. That's where we are. And we're that way in most places where there are huge numbers of black males all over the world. All over the world as we speak now. Tacky, trashy, terroristic. All in a reaction to the system of white supremacy in every area of activity.
So what you're saying is that we have a very ineffective response to it.
We have a very ineffective, and just like I said, when you look at the features of the response, it's tacky. Turn on television, just look at our behavior and whatnot.
Yeah.
Tacky, 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 tacky. And you try to improve on it just a little bit, it drops to the next register, trashy. It starts getting trashy and trashy and trashy. You don't get anything that's going to inspire you to do anything constructive. That's how you know it's trashy. See, because you might say, what do you mean trashy? It means it doesn't inspire you. Looking at what black males do, the way we talk, the way we act, even with the high fives and everything that we try to do that says, hey, this distinguishes us from other people. This is a black thing. You wouldn't understand. But you look at it, you examine it, tacky, trashy, terroristic. That's all you see. You don't see anything else because there's nothing else there to see. That's the truth of the matter. We have to get a completely new culture. I mean completely new. I mean, just pull it up by the roots. Abandon all the stuff that we have practically worshipped down through the generations, and that's why we're still in the shape that we're in. And the white supremacists know it because they have a strong culture. That culture is called white supremacy. There's never been anything to match it. No religion has been able to match it. It's the strongest religion. It's the strongest political system that the world has ever seen. And it's strong because it's scientific. It's designed to do what it's designed to do. Black people are just scatterbrained all over the place.
As we look at the 17th anniversary of the Million Man March, I guess what you're saying to me is that we're still functioning like boys. We're not men. Is that what I hear you saying, Mr. Fuller?
That's correct. Boys are subject to men. There's no such thing as a black man anywhere on this planet. You can't have a black man in the system of white supremacy. It's impossible. So what are we? We are males. So what is a black male in a system of white supremacy? He is a boy. If you look at the description of what a boy is, boys are dependent on men. The black males of this entire planet are dependent on the white supremacists, racist man and racist woman. They are the white supremacists. They are the ones who dictate what's going to happen in economics. They dictate that. They say, look, if you have a job, you're going to get it from me, either directly or indirectly, and I don't care where you are, even if you call yourself having your own black country. You are going to do what I say do. Your economic system is going to be subject to me because it's my economic system. You don't have an economic system. You don't understand that. Economics is time and energy, according to compensatory logic. And I will absorb all of your time and energy. In my enterprises, you will buy and sell what I want you to buy and sell. You can't move on the ocean without my permission. All of you black people on this planet, you move across the ocean, I will stop you and say, where are you going? Without my permission. You better get registered before you leave port to go anywhere and sell anything to anybody, and you better register with me on my ocean, on my planet, in my universe. Do you read my lips? Do you understand what I'm saying? Boy, gal, Live with it. Learn to enjoy it. Because this is your status. That's the voice of the white supremacists. They don't make bluffs. They don't bluff. Black people bluff. I mean, we put on our dark shades and we redo our hair and we stick out our chest and we get a new tattoo and then we walk them down the street bluffing each other. You don't get in the white supremacist space with that nonsense. Those dark shades that you were wearing, they made them.
But, Mr. Fuller, the word is that these young black males ain't scared. They ain't scared of nothing. They'll take on anything. Is that you saying that's a bunch of hogwash?
That's hogwash. They're filling up the jails. See, when you don't take nothing, you don't go to jail. No. You don't go to jail and then brag about being there, too, which is another thing. Write songs about I've been in the lockup. I've been in every lockup that was ever made. That is absolute insanity. No. When you're really tough, the one thing that you say, I don't go to jail. I don't go to nobody's jail ever. I never get in greater confinement. And anybody who thinks they can put me there, try it. Now, that's when you're really tough. I haven't seen a black male yet that can make good on that threat. Not one. It's all bluff, huffing and puffing, trying to impress whom? Black females. If we tell the truth, that's just about all that we want to do. And a few other black males that are standing around looking at us, strutting around like sporting life in Porgy and Bess. It hasn't changed. Our culture is rotten. Rotten to the core. We need a new culture, a counter-racist culture, a scientific culture, a constructive culture, where everything in it that we do, we've become the most constructive people on earth, that when you see a black person coming, you say, now, you can describe that black person by two things, two words, problem solver. And he solves problems without making any. That should be a characteristic of every black person, including me. A person who all day long go anywhere on the planet and solve problems without making any. Solve problems without making any. When you see a black person coming down the street, say, breathe a sigh of relief. Here comes a problem solver. These problems that we dickering with and whatnot, and we're trying to solve and whatnot, here comes a black male. Black males are known to be problem solvers. That's what they are.
When you see them coming
black
down,
females too. This should be our characteristic by now. This is what we should be known by. I mean, anytime you see us anywhere on the planet, I had this problem, whatnot. I just looked up. I see a black male coming in the distance. Wow. We got a problem solver on the scene. We got the problem. These people are all about problem solvers. They used to be the worst people on earth. But look at them now. That's where we should be about now. We are nowhere close to that. We are problem makers. And then brag about being problem makers.
Is that a sign of insanity, Mr. Fuller?
Absolutely. We're already insane. We just, get worse and better.
Escalating it, yeah.
We get, yes, right. I mean, it waxes and wanes. Every now and then we'll do a few things that make sense, and then we lapse right back into our same old habits. See, our traditions are not anything. There's nothing to them. The things that we brag about most, if we tell the truth, they're not very productive. The results show that. Even when sometimes white people will say that, well, that's productive, but they put it almost in a little box by saying it's productive if you're just measuring one black person with another one. Don't measure that black person by a white person. That's a different measurement altogether.
Stay right there. More to come with Mr. Neely Fuller. This is The Compensatory Concept. I'm Brother Kahari, heard exclusively on Talktainmentradio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard.
Talktainmentradio.com. Food for thought.
Did you know that we spend 1/3 of our lives sleeping? If a person lives to be 90 years old, he or she will have spent about 32 of those years sleeping. But don't think that if we just spent more time awake, we could accomplish more in life. Our bodies don't work that way. Not getting enough sleep can contribute to stress, disease, obesity, poor memory, poor judgment, and a decrease in our abilities as we age. Lack of sleep causes accidents on the road and in the workplace. We need about 8 hours of sleep each night, and young people need even more. To that end, we should not consume caffeinated drinks past early afternoon. We should start to wind down as we near bedtime and make our bedrooms conducive to good sleep. No light exposure and a cool temperature. I guess I and many others should no longer fall asleep by the light of the television.
That's another Food for Thought. To hear additional Food for Thought, stay tuned to Talktainmentradio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard.
Every baby can have the freedom to move their way in Pampers Cruisers. They adapt at the waist, legs, and bottom with up to 12 hours of protection for our driest, best-fitting diaper. Pampers.
T-Mobile presents The Simple Choice.
With T-Mobile, I can walk out with the new Samsung Galaxy S4 for way less than at AT&T. We have a big family. T-Mobile.
Awesome. Well, now we'll all have the coolest phones in school. It almost makes up for the social stigma of living in a shoe. You live in a shoe.
Choose to spend less upfront at activation for your new Samsung Galaxy S4 at T-Mobile.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
Years ago, identical twins were separated at birth. Chris Paul was destined for life with basketball. Cliff Paul was destined to become a State Farm agent. They shared one invaluable trait. They were both born to assist. Find an agent born to get you to a better state.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on Talktainmentradio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard. I'm Brother Kahari. You can listen to us live like you're doing now at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We're live right now. And or you can hear us tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, p.m. So set your clock, or you can go and listen to the podcast. All you have to do is go to Talktainmentradio.com, click on programs, and then look for compensatory concept, and voila, there it is, all of it, right there in the whole kit and caboodle, so to speak. Let's listen to a little bit of Farrakhan as we are observing the 17th anniversary of the Million Man March, October the 16th.
God made man, and if we are at a new beginning, we gotta make a man all over again, but make him in the image and the likeness of God. Now if you add the T on, you get the suffix ment. Ment means action, process, the instrument or agent of an action or process. So when you say, I'm atoning, you got to act on it. You got to get in the process. You got to acknowledge you're wrong, confess you're wrong, repent of your wrong, atone for your wrong. Huh? Then you get forgiveness, then reconciliation and restoration, and then you're back to the atone.
All right, Mr. Fuller, that was a lot of words that were put out there at that Million Man March. We're talking about the Million Man March. It took place October the 16th, 1995, on this same day, 17 years ago. I was right there. Mr. Fuller was there. And a number of others were there. What has happened in 17 years since the Million Man March? Well, we've got a black man that's sitting in a higher position called the presidency. You got black men that are sitting as corporate so-called corporate CEOs that you didn't have. You got black men that are on television in ways, and movies in ways that we didn't see back in 1995. So some may say, and it's an interesting word they come up with, gains. This word gains is interesting. Some may say, well, we've made some gains as black men. But on the other side of that coin is mass incarceration at an unprecedented level, even higher than it was in 1995. Drug consumption, unemployment, you name it. The music, the lack of respect, the divorce rates, it's just off the chibble, all of this. And so if you look at the system and you look at by any measurement, the condition has actually, if this is possible, actually worsened, except for a few. Mr. Fuller has said these are called black faces up front. But black males, can they be called men? Do they function like men? If you say they're not men and you say they're males, then we need a definition of a man. Mr. Fuller, what if you had to give a definition of a black man that we ought to be working toward, what would that definition be?
Manager. Anybody who can manage. Now, you can manage in a non-constructive manner, but also men are dominant over boys and girls. Men are dominant over boys and girls. They are the guide posts, the guide entities for boys and girls. So the only men on the planet are white. Even when it looks like they're being inefficient, even when they're half drunk, they are still managing the entire world in the system of white supremacy. That's what white supremacy means. It's not something that's off to the side of the road. White supremacy means supreme, telling everybody what to do. Nobody tells them what to do in the form of a person. Now, we do have a creator, but that creator is not omnipresent in the minds of people in the form of people that we see every day. In the form of people, the supreme people on this planet come under the system of white supremacy. And these people, first of all, are recognized as white people. And among the white people, not talking about all white people, among the white people, you have white supremacists. And these are the most powerful, dominant people on the planet. They are the smartest people on the planet because they have made all of the people that they classified as non-white subject to them. That's not some non-white people. I said all. Now, either I told the truth or I didn't. I don't know of a single non-white person on this planet who doesn't come under the dictates of the white supremacists. Not one. Not one. Anywhere on the planet at any given day. Any given moment of any given day. Regardless of what he says he is supposed to be and what his title is. I mean, president, emperor, king. You have a lot of people on the planet who are black who call themselves kings, tribal kings.
Mm-hmm.
You better believe when the white supremacists come through that village, I mean, it's his village. It's his village instantly. I mean, no, I don't mean like in several months, maybe. I mean instantly when the white supremacists, why? Because the white supremacists said, this is my planet. I'm all right. You're just a guest. And if you try to prove that you're otherwise, try me. I'll show you in about 10 minutes because I got the muscle. You don't even have any idea of what muscle is. You boys and girls running around talking about your holidays and your tribe and, you know, and having your festivals and your little gatherings and whatnot. That's laughable. All of you put together are laughable. And I do the laughing. So shut up and get in the ditch. Every last one of you. Unless I pull you out of the ditch, put you in a pretty suit,
Now, Mr. Fuller,
dress,
Mr. Fuller,
and let you strut around and pretend to other black people that you're something.
Mr. Fuller, we were told that white supremacy was Bull Connor standing in, or George Wallace standing in the doorway, or the Ku Klux Klan, or the Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. And and once that was done, we were told white supremacy didn't exist. You got the Chinese, you got black president, you got all of these people who are every day, that's who you're reading about. That's who's calling the shots. That's who's making decisions. Even got a health care plan named after a black man, Obamacare. So how can you say white supremacy still exists, Mr. Fuller?
It wouldn't be any Obama with the title of president unless the white supremacist said that he could be that. And they have his limitations already set. They say, yes, you can sit behind the desk, and yes, you can do this, and you can do that, and I'll let you travel here on Air Force One or wherever, and, shake people's hands and make speeches and all like that. You're very eloquent, which I have taught you to be. And like I teach all you black people, because all of you are subject to me. If you're doing anything at all that makes sense, it's because I allow you to do it. If you have individual talent, I absorb it and use it for whatever I want to use it for. So you're not going anywhere without me holding you by the hand and telling you what to say most of the time. So when I say that you can have a program of some type, you can have that program. But I also will limit you in what you can do, because you are not going to do anything that's bad for the business of white supremacy. I'll guarantee you that. Now, that's the voice of the white supremacists. You're not going to put my business in danger.
Now, Mr. Fuller, we hear that in places like Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Georgia, Oakland, California, places where you have large numbers of black people, that black people are in charge. They run Atlanta, they run Washington, D.C., they run places like Oakland, California, and other spots, Detroit and other spots. I mentioned the wrong one there. And other spots where large numbers of black people are. They say places like Columbus, Ohio, and other places is a plantation. So they go to Atlanta, they go to Chicago, they go to all these places and tell us we're in charge here. What do you say about that, Mr. Fuller?
Not true. See, something is either true or it isn't. You can't have black people in charge of anything in the system of white supremacy. That's what white supremacy means. I mean, that's not true. I can administer things. I mean, on the slave plantation, there was highly skilled slaves. And not even on the plantation. There were skilled slaves, craftspeople and whatnot. People who knew how to build things, who were slaves, but they weren't in charge of what they built. That hasn't changed today. Yes, you can parade around a black person who has lots of skills, can get a lot of things done, but they come under the emperorship of the system of white supremacy. You don't get in the emperor's face and start bragging about what you have accomplished. The emperor will seize everything that you got because they already have you. See, when someone is dominant over me, I don't even have a person that I can call a wife. That's just a companion that's been issued to me by the white supremacists. They can break that up anytime they get ready. All they have to do is fire me off the job and give her a job and make me dependent on her, which they do all the time. Or they can fire both of us. It's black people all over the world who are lined up with little buckets in their hands and their babies in their arms. And at the end of that line, either directly or indirectly, is the white supremacists handing out the goodies. Black people all over the world, lined for hours on end, days on end, going across the desert, babies in their arms, black females with their males who are strutting around saying that they're the head of the household. He's not the head of anything. Neely Fuller, who is a black male, is not the head of anything on this planet. The white supremacists tell me what to do, and I'd better do it, or they will erase me in less than a half a second, and nothing will be done about it. Because there's nobody with the muscle to do anything about it. There's nobody with the intelligence to do anything about it. Nobody.
So you're saying that all of these places that black people, black males in particular, brag about living, that they're glad they wouldn't come back to Columbus, or they wouldn't come back to Kansas, or they wouldn't, etc. They're in Atlanta. They're in all these so-called black Mecca places, Houston, Dallas, whatever. You're saying that means nothing, that's false, that's not true, that black folks ain't in charge of nothing in these places? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Fuller?
I mean, they have become more comfortable, but everybody on the planet has become more comfortable, including white people, than they were, say, 1,000 years ago, for the most part, in some ways. And they have become less comfortable in other ways. For one thing, their mental capacity, I mean, kind of waxes and wanes. Their mental abilities and whatnot. Black people, for the great part, I remember just coming up when just getting that biscuit during the great so-called Great Depression and whatnot. Just having a biscuit on a plate was a big deal. Okay? Now you have black people who have a whole lot of biscuits, a lot of them. Some black people are still starving. I mean, all over this area of the world. Some of them don't have adequate food and whatnot. But for the most part, black people are better fed now in the Northwestern Hemisphere, for the most part, than they were in, say, 1920, in which just having a couple of apples in the house, in a little old shack down by the track, I mean, you might be feeling blessed. I mean, 12 children standing around, and you got a plate full of biscuits and whatnot, and, and they're raggedy and barefoot and whatnot, and they're saying, Mama, can I have that last biscuit? Can I have half of the biscuit and let sister have the other half? Some black people who are still around remember those days, even in the cities. Not just in the countryside, but even in the cities that was so. I mean, just having a can of beans, or, 2 cans of beans more than you usually have was a big deal. You go to the grocery store and you say, go to the grocery store and tell Mr. Callahan to let you have 2 slices of bologna. I can't afford but 2 slices. How much will he charge me for 2 slices? Well, he says he'll make it 6 cents this time. Well, you don't have the 6 cents. Can I give him 4? A lot of black people were in that shape. Now black people have banquets and fancy hotels and food just spilling all over the place. And when the banquet is over, I mean, you got food to throw out. I mean, the trash bin is out there that's full of food and whatnot. And many black people are obese. I mean, we weigh tons now. I mean, can't lift a leg up to get on the bus, some of us. I mean, we're so overfed. I mean, some of us just, because we were denied food for so long, when we see any kind of food, we just walk through the store and try to grab everything on the shelf and eat it all at one sitting. And we have to stop that because, that's going to the extreme. People who are unbalanced in the mind will become unbalanced, have unbalanced bodies too. So you have to have a balanced mind. Balanced mind, balanced body.
So what you're saying is
we're way out of balance with everything all over the world. I mean, too much on one end, not enough on the other of everything.
Stay right there, Mr. Fuller. More to come. This is the compensatory concept, heard exclusively on Talktainmentradio.com. Stay right there.
My name is Al Edmondson. I'm a business owner and community organizer. I want to encourage you to visit the King Lincoln District. our community. It's a great place to live, work, and worship. Catch a show at the Lincoln Theater. Enjoy smooth jazz at the King Arts Complex. Enjoy great food and visit our historical churches and newly remodeled homes. Live, work, and worship the King Lincoln District.
Every baby can have the freedom to move their way in Pampers Cruisers. They adapt at the waist, legs, and bottom with up to 12 hours of protection for our driest, best-fitting diaper. Pampers.
T-Mobile presents the simple choice.
With T-Mobile, I can walk out with the new Samsung Galaxy S4 for way less than at AT&T. We have a big family. T-Mobile.
Awesome. Well, now we'll all have the coolest phones in school. It almost makes up for the social stigma of living in a shoe. You live in a shoe.
Choose to spend less upfront at activation for your new Samsung Galaxy S4 at T-Mobile.
Welcome to today's lottery drawing. And today's winning numbers are not yours, not yours, and another number that's not yours. And the final number is not yours.
When it comes to having money, don't rely on luck. Brew your own coffee at home instead of buying that latte. Brown bag it to work instead of ordering it. Go to feedthepig.org for more free ideas on how to save. Feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
We're cracking down on Medicare fraud.
The health care law gives us powerful tools to fight it,
To investigate it,
prosecute it,
and stop criminals.
Our senior Medicare Patrol volunteers
are teaching seniors across the country
to stop, spot, and report fraud.
You can help.
Guard your Medicare card.
Don't give out your card number over the phone.
Call to report any suspected fraud. We're cracking down on Medicare fraud.
Let's make Medicare stronger for all of us.
In 50 feet, turn left. Why are you driving so slowly?
After a few drinks, I'm taking it slow.
Well, you're not fooling the cop behind you.
What?
Get ready to pay in 0.1 miles.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
Years ago, identical twins were separated at birth. Chris Paul was destined for life of basketball. Cliff Paul was destined to become a State Farm agent. They shared one invaluable trait. They were both born to assist. Find an agent born to get you to a better state.
Any great invention that we made, you put white on it. Because you didn't want to admit that a black person had that intelligence, that genius.
Did that. Did do that. They did.
You try to color everything to make it satisfactory to the sickness of your mind.
Did do that.
So you whitened up religion. Farrakhan didn't do that. You locked the Bible from us. Farrakhan didn't do that. Your sick mind wouldn't even let you bury us in the same ground that both of us came out of. We had to be buried somewhere else. That's sick. Some of us died just to drink water out of a fountain marked white.
Mr. Fuller, we are observing the 17th anniversary, if you will, of the Million Man March on October the 16th, 1995. A lot of stuff was in the air at that time, a lot of promise. Mr. Fuller, I want to deal with this word called atonement. That was a word that was used frequently. What does that word mean, Mr. Fuller?
Oh, it depends on who's doing the speaking. Always, like every word, depends on who's using the word. So I would have to say that whoever used the word will explain what the word means, because it would be from that person's perspective.
What does it mean to you?
Well, really, I've never really considered the word. I have the word guide, and I don't have that word in there because I simply didn't think about putting it in there or try to come up with a definition. Maybe I could accept a definition that is usually used, whatever it means in the what most people would call the standard English dictionary. Then that would be acceptable to me, I guess. I've never looked the word up, but I think that it was explained at the Million Man March when it was used by the speakers who used it. I think Minister Farrakhan used the word,
yes,
and
did.
I think that he gave it the definition that he wanted to have. So that would be the way to go with it. That's what I always recommend, that people go by.
Okay, let's use
any
that.
word that anybody uses if the person explains the word. See, whoever's using the term should explain it from their point of view, because words are just tools designed to accomplish whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So you can fashion a tool any way that you want to.
Right. All right. So let's go with that. If we look at the definition of atonement that Minister Farrakhan used and the way he used it, do black men have anything to atone for from where you sit, Mr. Fuller? Black males, rather. Do they have anything to atone for, Mr. Fuller?
Well, I don't remember exactly how the term was used by Minister Farrakhan, but if I was going to use the term, if I say atonement, because I've never used the term, really, it's not even in my word guide, but if we mean by atonement, I guess, meaning you repair what has been damaged, I guess that's what it means.
Well, it means repent. Essentially, you repent.
Well, repent means
wrongdoing.
to. Well, would that be the same as repairing? See,
sort of. Repent means not necessarily repairing. Repent would mean I ask your forgiveness for what I have done wrong. That means now atoning means something different. Atoning to me means that you're going to go and do something about it. That's a little bit different. Now, that's the impression I got. The impression I had from that atonement was you must account for what you have done and you must make it correct. That's what I sense. And so I'm asking, do black males have anything that they must account for and then make correct, Mr. Fuller?
Sure. Not only black males, everybody on the planet, because the planet is a mess. The white supremacists have a whole bunch of, I might say repairing, if you want to use that word, but I will use the title that I use on the book. I will use the word that I use as a part of the title on my book, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Key term here is compensatory, meaning making up for what should have been, making up for what's missing. So, oh yes, everybody on this planet has got to stand in line for that one, because we have made a mess of this planet. We have made a mess of everything that has been issued to us. And the greatest offenders are the white supremacists, racist man and racist woman.
Yeah,
they are the greatest offenders because they are the most powerful.
I'm trying to figure out how, if we're victims of white supremacy, Mr. Fuller, how are we responsible for messing anything up?
Well, by not making a maximum effort to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. Because that's what the system of white supremacy is designed to do. Now, once we become aware of that, now if we're not aware of it, then that's something else, and many of us are not aware of it. But we do know something about, we have a sensibility, rather, of things to do and things not to do. Now, babies even begin to perceive that. I mean, after they get just a little bit of guidance. So the things that we are aware of that we shouldn't do, then we just stop doing them. That's all. the things we shouldn't do, that we are aware that shouldn't be done, just stop doing those things and do the things that are correct.
Okay,
do
so
the things
so
things that are most constructive.
So
that's all. Make
right.
everything that you do constructive. Be problem solvers, not
Right.
problem makers.
Right. So atonement would not be the proper word, and that's probably why you didn't deal or put it in your piece, because if you're victims, then you have been victimized. So another word, the word you use is compensation, making up for what's missing. Is that correct, Mr. Fuller?
Yes, but at the same time, a person can use the word atonement. See, that's what I try to point out in the word guide.
Mm-hmm.
You can use any word.
Uh-huh.
You can use any word, pick any word, and then give it the definition that you want it to have, okay? But you have to explain to people that's your definition. That's not the guy down the street's definition for the same word. Like I use the word America in a context that nobody uses it in. I say an American is a person that doesn't mistreat people and who guarantees that the person that needs help the most gets the most help. Therefore, no one is qualified to call him or herself an American, even though people do. Many people do. But I say there's no such thing as an American yet, because you have people being mistreated every day, every minute of the day, I mean in the worst possible way, and you have people who need constructive help, and they are nowhere near getting it. So anytime you have a situation like that, Americans do not allow that type of situation to exist. So you have a situation like that, you don't have Americans, and you don't have America, nor do you have Africa or Asia, because they all have the same definition. Otherwise, why have a definition? Why have the words themselves? If you're going to mistreat people, you should have one title, mistreater. I mean, you don't have to have any other title to be a mistreater. If you're a mistreater, that's what you are. If you mistreat people, you are disqualified from being an American, an African, an Asian, or anything else that is of any constructive value. Why? Because you have one title. You are a mistreater of people. You are a misuser of things. And therefore, that should be your title. That's the correct title. And no other title will fit. You cannot be an American and mistreat people. That's impossible. That's impossible. That cannot be done. And you definitely can't be a white supremacist and be an American.
Mr. Fuller, as we look down the road now, if we don't change our behaviors as black men, black males, however you want, even black boys functionally, 10 years from now, Mr. Fuller, when I might be gone from the planet, you might be gone, who knows, what if we had to walk maybe 10 to 15 years and we came back, or if we were still here and we walked around and we saw the condition of black men, and we don't change our behaviors, what is it that we would likely see on a day-to-day basis, Mr. Fuller? What do you think this is going to look like?
More or less the forms of what we're looking at now, and complaining about the same things we're complaining about now. See, the law of inertia means that if you don't change something, I mean a rock that sits on the moon, if nothing moves that rock, when you come around 40 trillion years later and the moon is still there, that rock will still be there. Why? Because nothing came along to move that rock on the moon. That's the law of inertia, I think. That's what chemists and scientists call it, people who are in the physics field and whatnot. If something is sitting in a place and is just sitting there, something has to move it. Black people got the same habits that we had. We just embellished them. The same habits, the same outlook on the world. We have the same one that we had many, many years ago. And that's why we are a static people. I mean, the same ways that we try to entertain ourselves, it's the same way. The minstrel show. And tacky, trashy, terroristic way we have of going about doing everything. We're not problem solvers. And as long as we're not problem solvers, problems won't be solved. All we have to do is just change and just say, hey, I'm not in the problem-making business anymore. I'm not going to make any kind of problem. Anything that I do, I'm going to check and see if it's a problem maker. Because if I check it and I see that this thing that I got planned on doing, if it's going to make a problem, I'm not going to do it. Mm-hmm. Now, if every black person on the planet would do that, you could get instant change. It's not a long, drawn-out process. It's just a decision. We haven't made a decision to get rid of black culture as it is. We worship black culture. We look forward to it. And we bask in it, or just roll in it, wallow in it.
What's keeping us from making that decision, Mr. Fuller?
We never really thought about we have to change our culture. We have been embellishing our culture, trying to put another bells and whistles on the end of it and whatnot, and brag about it. Whereas we need to examine our black culture, every part of it, in every area of activity. See, the devil, you might say, is in the details. Also, the correction is in the details. All you have to do is just do it. It's just like changing anything. You can change anything. That's no longer, doesn't matter how long something, a pencil has been sitting on a table. It just sits there and sits there and sits there. But you decide one day, I'm going to pick up this pencil and I'm going to use it for something useful. That's all you have to do. And you can do that instantly. It's not a long, drawn-out process. That's another part of black culture. We always speak in terms of a struggle. We say, well, we have to have more people, the younger people coming along, got to join the struggle. But just using that term gets in your way. You should never use that term. Look at it like a struggle. What it is just a mathematical equation. You either pick up the pencil or you don't. You can do that instantly. It doesn't even take practice. You just say, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not name-calling people anymore. I'm not going to be discourteous anymore. In any crowd of 10 people, I'm going to be the most courteous person in that crowd. That's a decision you can make instantly. I know that for a fact. I know that to be true. That's a decision you can make instantly.
How do we get black people to make that decision, Mr. Fuller?
Just tell them, like we're doing now. Tell them to make that decision. Minister Farrakhan at the Million Man March had black people make a pledge. Now, I'm going to ask a question. Does anybody anywhere remember anything about that pledge that was made? There was a pledge made. That was what the whole march was for.
Yes, there was.
Yes, they said, now, Minister Farrakhan laid out a lot of the things that everybody's doing that shouldn't be done.
Correct.
Most of the speeches were about that. We do many speeches about all the things that exist, all the things that exist that shouldn't exist, all of the mistreatment that black people have gone through. I mean, many preachers talk about that. Everybody in the civil rights field talk about that all the time. But at the end of the day, we outline, now here's what. These are the things we should do as of now. Now that's the part that always gets lost. I have noticed that down through the years. That's why I tried to write a book. I mean, outlining nothing but what to do about stuff. Because anytime we get to the doing part, that's when everybody starts tuning out.
Yep.
That's when the crowd starts breaking up.
They start breaking up.
See, we like to hear all about the, pump fists and whatnot, and how angry we are about Trayvon Martin and whatnot, and and we're not going to take it anymore. We love slogans. But when somebody outlines something, say, well, look now, from now on, starting with this day, I'm not talking about next week, go and buy black publications. That was one of the things that came out of the Million Man March.
Right.
That was one of the pledges.
There's quite a few, about 16 or 17.
Support black publication. The newspapers and whatnot, because they're dying and whatnot. That was one of the pledges made. I'm wondering how many of the millions of black people who are out here subscribe to any black publication. All right?
Mr. Fuller? Wow, the clock always catches us. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate you.
Sure.